Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Never too soon to think about protecting your home or business from pests. Spring is right around the corner. So in terms of termite inspections, termite treatments, regular mosquito control treatments, don't wait till spring. Do it now. Call my friends at Southeast Termite and Pest Control this week to discuss options. All right, back with Chuck, Mark, Mike, Bob, and I want to talk about Grant Williams. Last night, another big night, 22 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists at Texas A&M. He could be a repeat SEC Player of the Year. My guess is he will be. If he finishes up the way he's playing now, he will be without much of a contest. And if he keeps this up, he could be in the conversation for National Player of the Year. Dick Vitale a couple of weeks ago already said he's my guy at the midway point. Hard for him to get the top slot, but just to be in that mix is pretty impressive. My question is, where does he rank among the best UT players of, say, since the mid-'70s, since Ernie and Bernie? So let's go ahead and put up a graphic here. What I did, and this is surprising to me, I went and found only the guys who are consensus All-Americans and only the guys who are SEC Player of the Year from 1975 forward. That's it. Allen Houston was never a consensus All-American at Tennessee, did not win SEC Player of the Year. Reggie Johnson, not on either of those lists. So in terms of these types of national awards, you got Bernard King, two-time and a first-teamer. Ernie Grunfeld, two-time, second team. Dale Ellis with a second and a first, two-time, made first-team All-American. Chris Lofton, second, twice. Tony White, Player of the Year once. Ron Slay, Player of the Year once. Grant Williams, Player of the Year once, maybe twice. You look at Bernard King. Ernie Grunfeld, his problem was he was here when King was here. He might have had another Player of the Year thing. Guys, where does Grant Williams rank among all-time Vols? And let's leave the graphic up for a second as you guys chime in.
If you're talking about that list, I think he comes in no worse than number 4. If you're talking about that list, I think that leaves off some great Tennessee players that would be in the conversation without the stats. But I would put him 4th on that list, right behind Dale Ellis.
I'm going to use my 30 seconds here to say Allen Houston should be on that list. He's scored more points than anybody in the SEC besides Pete Maravich. So that's my plug for him.
Okay. Well, I had to have some sort of cutoff to make a list. I couldn't just put everybody's – Allen Houston, that's why I mentioned him as he's not on the list. Where would he pay? Where would Grant Williams rank?
Well, I think gosh, it's hard for me to put him above anybody above Tony White. I think he'd be right where the Bernard King, Ernie Grunfeld, Dale Ellis, Chris Lofton, and Grant Williams. The hard part is, too, your legacy changes the further you go on. And so you think, look at some of those guys like, man, they were such great NBA players. Yep. And so how much does that affect our thoughts of what they did in college?
Yeah, and that's another thing. I should have said that. I don't want the NBA stuff to impact it, because you got a lot of guys in the NBA right now, like Tobias Harris. He was here for a year.
Yeah.
You know, you got guys in the league who thought Richardson would become what he's become. Yeah. Chuck, your thoughts? Where do you put him?
He's in the top 5. I mean, I think Bob nailed it. You've got King, Grunfeld, Ellis. To me, that's kind of like the royalty there. I mean, it's hard to unseat those guys. Yeah. And then after that, Chris Lofton, all the big shots he made in his career and how he brought that back. And prayers for Tony White and his family and what he's going through. But I would have him right there in that top 5.
I would have him, and again, he's not on the list because of that, but Allen Houston would be in there. King, Grunfeld, Ellis, Williams. No offense to Chris Lofton, no offense to Tony White. They were scorers. They were shooters. Grant Williams, 22 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, night after night, blocks, steals. He does it all. To me, that puts him at a different level than just spectacular scorers.
The other thing is your likability at the time. That as a fan base, you need that likability, right? I mean, Grant Williams is such a fan favorite because what this fan base needs. He's such a great kid. He's awesome to cheer for.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny, Bernard King got that likability back. After years, I think people sort of didn't like him. He
parted ways here in a bad, you know.
And I think he got that back. You know, Tony White, until recently, until about his unfortunate illness, excuse me, I had forgotten how good he was.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was sort of funny. He's the guy that sort of faded from my memory a little bit. You know, and Tony White, yeah, he was good, but. And so he's kind of moved back up because now you're seeing his stats, unfortunately, because of his illness.
You mentioned another good player. I mean, there's tons of good. You had to draw. Howard Wood made somebody's All-America list. It wasn't consensus, but he made an All-America list once. You mentioned Dyron Nix over here before we went in. There are plenty of guys that could have gone on there.
Nix clicks.
But to me, you know, I put Grant Williams up there.
I see him a lot like Dale Ellis. That's where he fits in with me.
And as good as Grant Williams is, man, you're not ready for the NBA yet, so you need to come back for that last season.
The other thing with Dale Ellis is, remember when he was in college, they had him playing against Ralph Sampson because he was another one like Williams who, all right, we know this isn't what's best for you, but go do it. Then he goes to the NBA and becomes the greatest three-point shooter in the league. All right. Later, it's our annual UT Super Bowl prop bet fiesta. We tie the Super Bowl to UT's next game against Missouri. That should be interesting for you. But coming up next, a look ahead at Tennessee's basketball games this week. Second time around against Missouri and Florida. Coming back on the Sports Source.